You were super busy at the show. I didn't have the chance to speak to you in detail. Back in episode 193, we discussed how you develop Carv when you were at Imperial College about 10 years ago. You've won a bunch of awards along the way. You've been through loads of rounds of funding. But there was some huge news earlier this month about the launch of Carv 2, and not Carv 2.0, I noticed. What is different about Carv 2 then?
Yeah, so the big thing about Carv 2 is it's so much more accessible. So the first thing you'll see when you look at the product is it just fits onto the boot. So whereas before with Carv 1, if you remember, you have a unit that fits inside your boot to measure the pressure and the motion, and then that has a tracker on the top. And what we've done with Carv 2 is we've removed the part inside, and you just have the unit on top. And the really exciting thing, and the team have done have achieved something technically incredibly difficult, which is what they've done is they've increased the accuracy of Carv 2 from Carv 1 by using very, very smart machine learning, essentially by looking at the previous huge data set that we had of Carv 1. We use that to learn exactly how a ski boot moves, and then we use that to, just with the motion, we can basically understand everything that we need to measure how you're skiing. And we can actually see that. So we have this kind of definition of accuracy internally, which is how much does Carv agree with a ski instructor. So we have a whole bunch of ski instructors that give us feedback about different levels of skiers, and that's basically by having that increased by having that huge data set, we've increased the accuracy 6%.
So just to clarify then, the Carv that I have had up until now, and I guess every customer has had until the last couple of weeks or so, is installed in as a footbed in the bottom of your boot. It had lots of it was able to measure how you ski via lots of different metrics. I think it had a magnetometer. I learned how to say that in the last podcast. Gyroscope, accelerometer, recording data multiple times per second. So you're saying, and then that was relayed to the attachments you put on your boots and then to your phone via Bluetooth. So basically taking out the footbed side of things completely.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a sort of long love affair with pressure, but essentially the problem with the pressure sensor. So yes, exactly as you said, the sensor fits into the boot, and it measured the motion with the motion sensor using accelerometer and the gyroscope, and then we also had obviously that layer of pressure sensors. And the interesting thing about pressure is it works in certain circumstances when everything is set up very well in the boot, but there's many cases where you imagine when you lean forward, you actually can take pressure off the front of the sensor and put more weight on the back. And we would always kind of find ourselves doing clever things to make pressure work, to get it to the best case we were, because we had to work across all these different types of boots. But ultimately what we realize is, as we kind of use the machine learning algorithms to get better and better at nailing the accuracy, and when we say accuracy, we talk about agreeing with the ski instructor, we realize that the algorithms are actually picking up more and more on the motion, and the motion part of the set of sensors. So how they're moving forward, how they're moving backwards, the speed of rotation. And what essentially is happening was that those pressure sensors, they've given us a really powerful data set across the whole user base, but because of all these inconsistencies, they're actually less reliable if we are trying to measure someone's technique at any point in time. So we had this kind of we had this kind of realization that we could actually deliver the same, actually we're delivering better overall accuracy to our customers without having the pressure sensor at all.
Evidently, there's a big step forward there, because I had my car fitted at the same time as I got new ski boots, and I was having custom insoles put in, and it would be difficult to swap them between boots, etc. But now with just these clip-on sensors, then you can swap them not just between boots, but you could lend them to friends as well if they had downloaded the app, I guess.
Yeah, so just to sort of zoom out a little bit, really our philosophy behind Carv is that we want to get everyone better at skiing so they have more fun. And as you say, one of the barriers that we saw when we spoke to customers, and they said, look, I'm not sure about the fit in my boot, or maybe they even had some problems where they had to kind of get their boot remolded. And so being able to clip on was that kind of huge unlock for just making it so much more accessible. And obviously we could only do it once we were happy with the level of data quality and the accuracy. But once we got there, we're really excited to move forward. It's really great you mentioned the ability to lend the sensors. So obviously you can just unclip them and lend them to friends. And the idea of Carv is that really like the long-term package, obviously you have a subscription package for the year. But the great thing we can do now is we have a new system we're releasing called Buddy Passes. And the way Buddy Passes works is every year you get 5 buddy passes, and then you can give a buddy pass to a friend, and then they can ski with Carv for a day. If they love skiing with Carv, then they can upgrade, and then they can just keep skiing in their own account, and they can then they'll get a free set of units, or you can give them back and you can try Carv and other friends. But it's a really nice way of introducing your friends to Carv, seeing what their ski IQ is, and starting that kind of competition between your friendship group.
Yeah, I like the idea of that because presumably they'd set up their own account on Carv itself, so you wouldn't necessarily have your own ski IQ or your scores kind of sullied or maybe
Yes.
improved by their performances.
Yes, exactly. So the cool thing you can do is you can add them. They have their own account. They can look through their data, and you can even form a group. So you could have, if you're skiing as friends, you can have a group for the season, and you can see where they rank in the in a group of friends.
Oh, I like that. Now, when we last spoke, which was less than a year ago, I've got a feeling at the time you said that your data set was something like 330 million turns. And it's like 500 million turns now, isn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah. So last time I checked, it was 580 million tons. And yeah, obviously it's going up all the time. So
So you've got that set of turns, and you're trying to establish, what is, skiing well. And you mentioned that you use instructors to identify. You talk about, the accuracy of Carve in determining how well you're skiing. So how did that process work? Bringing the instructors together with the data to identify what good skiing is.
yeah, I'm really proud of how the team have done this. It's a great question. So, obviously the difficult thing about skiing is that there's no objective measure yet, or we like to think we have one, but there's no objective measure of how good you are at skiing. Obviously, for a racer, it's your time, but for us, we need to come up with an objective or close to objective as possible measure of skiing skill. And so the way we did that is we kind of borrowed a concept from chess. So if you've played chess, there's what's called the ELO ranking, and basically when you have two chess players when they play each other, there's a system that works out the overall ranking based on if one is better than the other. And so what happens is that all the chess players have this really nice kind of all these different levels. And so the way that works is you have two kind of side by side people, and we try to copy that whole thing. So what we do is we use the same concept, and we had this this website called Ski Mash, an internal thing. And so we have tens of thousands of videos from our customers, where we have a video of someone skiing, and then we also have all the data, and we obviously need to try and understand how good that skiing is. And so what we work with these top instructors, only a very few instructors with the highest qualifications, and they are given two skiers side by side, two videos, and they have to choose the skier that is the best. So it's almost like a chess game, where the instructor is the adjudicator, and sometimes they disagree, but the system essentially runs that through. And we've got tens of thousands of sessions. There's been hundreds of thousands of comparisons between because if you have 10,000 sessions, you can have 10,000 squared comparisons, and so you have all these comparisons, and basically what happens is you get a very, very good understanding of how good that level of data is. Then once we have essentially the ranking of all the skiers, we can then essentially check when we have a ski IQ algorithm that is agreeing with the instructors. So if you imagine our data science team, they're constantly speaking to instructors, trying to understand what instructors are looking for, then extracting that concept into a metric. So every time you finish a ski turn, you create sort of 10 metrics, things like edge angle, edge similarity, and the exact design of those metrics has worked very closely with ski instructors. And so we build all those metrics up into your ski IQ score, which is our measure of skiing technique. And then we basically look for how close ski IQ agrees with the instructor labeled data set. And the really exciting thing is our new ski IQ algorithm with just the Carv 2 sensor on the top of the boot is 6% more accurate than the last year's algorithm.
Right, that's really interesting to hear that. And you mentioned ski IQ, and as a user of the Carv, to me, that's the most exciting part of it. That gamification where you can look at the league tables of a resort or a country by day or by week or by season and see where you rank in there. But one of the things I didn't actually get to speak to you on the stand, I think it was one of your colleagues told me that I think, are you going to be able to produce a different ski IQ depending on terrain from now on? It can automatically direct the type of terrain you're on?
Yes, so that's another really great outcome we have from the new algorithms this year, is that this year we'll be measuring the terrain you're on and then scoring you for that level of terrain. So previously it was a little bit of a deflating experience to go off piste with Carv. You'd essentially go off piste, you go into some moguls or some deep powder. You think, wow, I skied an incredible run, and then Carv would then say that your ski IQ is 30 points lower than your normal ski IQ. So a good ski IQ for me would be 140. If I went off piste, I might get 110 or even 100, maybe even 90. And so that's obviously a very disappointing experience, and you have actually skied really well. And the reason was that we didn't try and do off piste is because it's very difficult, because when you're off piste, the train, it's not just a flat surface you're on, the train could be doing anything. And so we intentionally just focused on groomed piste to start off with. But after a lot of work in Chile, so it's great. It's great. It was good. There was good off piste skiing there. That's one of the reasons we went there. We collected a big enough data set, and also with our large data set from users, where we could start classifying the terrain. So we know the terrain type. So when you enter off piste, Carv basically will say either it's cruddy terrain or variable terrain, we call it, either it's deep powder or it's moguls. And that will kind of, and then that, and once we know your terrain, then we change essentially the game so that we score you for that terrain. And so if you're skiing like one of our best skiers in deep powder, then you'll get like a score that's 150. So yeah, it's really exciting, and it kind of opens up the whole mountain. You're really kind of excited to try a new terrain and see if you can get a new terrain tag and still get a high ski IQ.
Right, so on those leaderboards, will it say on there what type of terrain that you scored that ski IQ on as well?
Yes. So when you look through your data, every segment you see, you'll see the essentially you'll see the type of terrain it's on. And then when you go to the leaderboard, there's the global leaderboard where people can score on any terrain. So you could get like an amazing score on powder. But then we're also going to have a filter, so you can filter by terrain. So you can say who is best in the world at powder skiing, and then you can basically say, oh, okay, and where do they do it? Okay, they did it in Alaska or somewhere. But it gives that, it kind of adds a new dimension. And what's nice is in your profile screen, you can also see where your top score was in each of the terrains. So, my best powder skiing was 130, but my best mogul skiing was 150. And it's kind of nice. It feels like you're kind of completing more of skiing. It kind of pushes you to try more terrain, which I think is really the point of Carv, is to get more out of the sport.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of that. I certainly, when I've used Carv before, it's always been on piste, and it really has made me focus on trying to, produce the best, most technical skiing that I can. Because once you start to use it, it feeds back this advice as to what you need to do, and you start thinking about it and working on it. I think it'd be really interesting, and I will try it for sure off piste. And think maybe you need to know more about the actual snow that you're going through as well, because surely if you're off piste and you're going through beautiful, light, fluffy powder that's like I don't know, 40 centimeters deep, compared to some kind of slushy, heavy stuff at the end of the day or in spring, that's going to be completely different. Yet the actual slope might be the same.
Yeah, so what happens is when you go off piste, we'll try and work out which type of terrain you're on. So we do have powder. So if it is really that kind of deep powder, then it will recognize it. And then basically what happens is the system then scores you compared to all the skiers that we know that are skiing deep powder. And so if you're skiing like the best skier that is recognized by the ski mash system, then you're going to get a very high score. And if you're down the pecking order, then your score will be lower. Now, you made a good point about variable terrain. So with the variable terrain, we basically take all the variable terrain and then we say, are you skiing well? And I think you're always going to have a slight sort of, there's going to be a sort of bias. If there's easy to ski variable terrain, then you might get a higher ski IQ in that. But I think it's a huge step forward to have those 4 different types of terrain, and then to feel that you're actually being rewarded for going into a new terrain.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to trying it, definitely. And I've already got my Carv too, and I think existing members, getting them at a really good rate. But the other big advantage of Carv 2 is that it's way less expensive than the previous model as well, because you have less, let's say, tech in terms of the insert that you would have put in. It's a bit simpler in terms of the hardware. So I think I'm right in saying that the cost is £199, but currently there's an offer on where it's £159, and that includes the hardware and the annual membership as well.
Yes, for the next few days we have our pre-season sale, and you can currently get started with Carv for just £159, which will be our lowest price for the season. And as you say, is much lower than Carv has previously been priced at.